Okay, let's open it up to everybody on the panel for questions. Yeah.
So, you mentioned that you have Pinterest boards, so I went out and looked at those. And it looks like you've got some of the same content you were showing here, and then additional content.
Yes.
Is this, as part of your plan, what percentage of your time is your staff using or spending curating content?
Carrie creates all of our content from everything that we do when it comes to meetings and across the board. So if you look at some of the content, also there's a whole section that is our stories of hope, and that is different clients or patients that have shared their story. Carrie's content probably on Pinterest, quite honestly, right now is probably less than 5% of the time. I mean, right now Facebook is huge of the time. And then in addition to she does all of the presentations for all the things that we do. So,
are you seeing much of a return on your investment in Pinterest?
we're just starting to, because it's like I said, we're only about 6 months into it.
Right. So with all the different social media websites, how do you, I guess, tailor the content on each one of those websites so that you're not saying the same thing, overwhelming the audience, but also at the same time making it significant for that particular demographic?
Oh, I can jump on that question. Quite honestly, we have found that every single one of the social media platforms are completely different audiences. I mean, there is, we use the 80-20 rule, there's probably 20% that crosses over. Otherwise, the audiences are very, very different. We are really surprised. It'd be no different than saying, somebody likes country music, that likes traditional music, that likes Christmas music. I mean, there'll be some songs we all like together, but then after that it's very, very different. And that's the part I think that's allowed us to be so successful at the different things that we dive into. Carrie really spends the time to learn what that audience is. And then we also find that you got to have that consistent message throughout it. So the same memes that might tag on the radio, the pre-roll, website pre-roll, Instagram, tweets, and all those pieces, there's always a consistent line that ties into that. And they typically manage around a blog. And our blogs are our strongest. I think we're up to about 52, 54 blogs. They average anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 reads per month. So that's 200,000 reads a month just on the blogs itself. So everything layers back and forth.
Right. Your thought on that?
Yeah, I guess I mean, my one thought is I really get annoyed when people try to use the same content on multiple networks because, like you said, they're so different. Twitter and Facebook seem to be the most common. You go into Hootsuite, you program them up. But I mean, I think like LinkedIn is a completely different type of content. So we don't actually use any of that automation type of thing, and I don't use it in my business either. But I post to, I guess in my business I use Twitter. But I had a little bit of LinkedIn, but I don't really use Facebook. But at Friends of Trees, I use Facebook almost all the time, and we monitor Twitter. So we don't try to repurpose the content across multiple networks unless something really is going to work. And then we have someone rewrite it.
And I think the most important aspect of that is when you choose a channel and you are going to be dedicated to it, be dedicated to it. So don't choose 17 channels and then be semi-dedicated to all of them, because that will come through on all 17 of those channels. So far better to pick 1, 2, or 3 channels. And David said it best, it's very labor intensive. So to get to know that audience and to engage with that audience, the source of the content for that audience takes a lot of time. And the audience will feel it. And I think David's case study shows that ultimately it will repay for the effort that you put out there. But transparency is the new black, right? So if you're not really engaged in that channel and you're not really dedicated to that channel, your audience will feel it and they won't be engaged either. Yeah.
So I wanted to know if Friends of Trees has somebody similar to what David's saying, just dedicated to being on Facebook and your website. Because I don't know how that's scalable to nonprofits that are resource constrained. Thank you.
So we have a part-time person. So he's working 20 hours a week, and he's pretty much doing social media is probably probably like 40% of his job, and then all the traditional, so yeah, nowhere near the resources in terms of what you guys have. I mean, I saw, what's Carrie's title was digital marketing strategist or something. I was like, wow, you know, there's someone who's like a digital marketing strategist. That's awesome. So yeah, we've got a part-time person who's hourly, who manages social media, printing, and PR and a whole lot of stuff. We have that 10-hour consultant who's doing some stuff with them, but he's also writing blog posts. He's kind of doing everything. So he's like a mini Carrie, but part-time.
I would make the suggestion, if you could put together a committee. We do have, in addition to Carrie, I mean, we do have some of our patients that will write blogs for us, but it's, again, we set the title, we set the expectation and what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. We have the expectation that they respond and keep an eye on their Facebook and also respond. So I think there's some ways for you to work your way through that. I mean, where we are today has only happened in the last 2 years. The first year we were just like everybody else. If I was the first full-time employee, there was me and nobody else. And then we made, then we had a half-time person, and then we had another half-time person, and then we were very blessed to find Carrie, and it's her natural gift. It's not what she's done in the past. She just fit very, very well. But I would recommend trying to find some volunteers, which then goes back to establishing a plan. I mean, just start the machine.
With nonprofits, we often recommend a SWAT team of sorts where you do exactly that. You have those that you can pay manage the channels in real time, those who can, in their leisure, write blogs, write more interesting stories, that kind of thing, leverage them as well. So it's a very delegated process, and that takes organization. So spend more time organizing than actually doing, and I think you'll get more time.
Yeah. This question is for Martin about email marketing specifically, and really for anybody. You mentioned that you were using your e-newsletter to activate your volunteers and crew leaders, but I imagine you have quite a lot of different audiences through your volunteers, people who potentially are donors, your crew leaders. How are you using email marketing to segment to maybe reactivate volunteers from the past, or be able to use email marketing to regain additional donations? I mean, that's very distinct from audiences that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Great question.
Yeah, so I've been pushing our email marketing to be much more on the content world. Like it kind of, essentially, it's kind of your standard 2-column thing with more ASCII type stuff, like, hey, become a crew leader in the right-hand column, donate, things like that, but really try to push towards content as the main thing in terms of content that can apply to everyone. So we don't actually segment our list. We only segment it geographically so that people down in Eugene aren't hearing only about Portland. But we don't segment by donors and whatnot. We do keep our crew leaders and whatnot are actually kept outside of our email, our content marketing. We work with Salesforce and Vertical Response, and they work together. But our crew leaders, those key volunteer roles, we actually just send them emails to Gmail. We don't want anyone unsubscribing from our newsletter and then unsubscribing from those key communications that are going out to key volunteers. We actually don't use an email marketing system for that. So did that help?
Yeah, I was just curious, because I know with nonprofits in general, it can be, it's a resource of time. Segmentation strategies and personalization of content takes time to create. So I'm just curious what's been done and what you feel like that is.
So we have about 10 different mailing lists, and they are segmented perfectly to each organization or group that we're in. So for instance, we're the beneficiaries of one, so we're the sponsors of the VIP. It's a special list just for the VIP participants. We have a special list for volunteers. We have a list for every different piece of the puzzle that we work on. Again, it goes back to the full 16-month strategy. Those newsletters go out once a month. That list is, some content is shareable on all lists. Some content has to be made individually. It is as easy to write one newsletter as it is to write 12. And I'll be honest, they're all written at one time. It's one storyline. And you bite the bullet, again, I'm going back to that point, you've got to bite the bullet and know that you may not get all your things done this month. You bite the bullet and you write them all, and you know what the orchestrated storyline is going to be, and if something changes you can change one story anytime, but they're all done. Because you don't have time to go back and write one at a time. You never can find time to write for an hour. But if you're gonna bite the bullet and write for an hour, you might as well write for 2 hours and be done with all of it, because it really begins to flow. So we do have very targeted lists, and we use them very directly for what needs to be done.
Caitlin, I'm going to put you on the spot. We have Caitlin Carlson, who is the OHSU Dornberger Foundation Digital Marketing Communicator. How many segmentations do you have?
Oh, gosh, I don't know if I can count how many we have, because the hospital has so many different areas, and direct marketing segment between 10 and 12, but email marketing far more than that, probably in the 20 range.
20 segments. So it starts to get very, very complicated. And this is when marketing automation starts to become a very viable aspect of it, software.
I
Yeah.
can speak to that because I'm a finance professional. We have a specific list for finance professionals that consult on giving.
Great. That's
It's
fantastic.
loaded with content.
That's
So you're-
fantastic. Excellent. Thanks, Caitlin. Yes.
I wanted to ask, in addition to the health, have there been other attempts to get money from the folks that you've been dealing with through your social media?
We tried some different apps. Last year, for the last 2 years prior to this year, we had a campaign that was called Seasons of Giving, marginally successful. And again, it's interesting because our demographics changed dramatically in the last 3 years from a Northwest-based operation to honestly now, out of all the people that we interact with, probably Portland's less than 10% now. I mean, the reach across the country is so much larger. So again, now you have to retune your message to figure it out. I can tell you, and one of the pieces that we're really excited about, I think, I don't know if we do this today, it's not a challenge, but we did trademark Lupus Sucks this summer, and we're working on a whole product line with that piece of it. We just finished a program with UP that their students worked on for a whole semester, laying out an entire business plan behind it. So we're really excited about that one. I think that will be far more effective than our EP test in the market. It's edgy, it's fun. People like to do those kind of things. So that's the next thing that's going to roll out in about March. But now it's all the logistics behind ordering and all that stuff. So again, we're always trying something.
One of the things when I was doing a little research on the zombie apocalypse thing, the CDC has a foundation and they sold T-shirts. Where they're currently sold out of zombie apocalypse T-shirts, but it was something where I think it is key to give people something. It's kind of like Kickstarter. You know, if you give them nothing, they'll give you nothing, but if you give them a T-shirt, they'll give you $50. So people want to be part of that brand, and I think that's a good idea to be kind of sell them something that's probably more expensive, but you can still make a profit. Is anyone familiar with Teespring? This is my new favorite company. So the idea that it's like Kickstarter for T-shirts. So it's TEE Spring.
Just a comment. I had a kind of an aha moment listening to David speak. I spent 20 years developing and writing museum exhibitions. And I guess my aha moment listening to him talk about his planning for all of his messaging is museum exhibits temporary or exhibits through a physical space. He's talking about creating an online exhibit experience for time where we're both working on a narrative story. And, you know, I guess I'm breaking his, what he's doing down as like the exhibit labels and things like that. Yeah. We just spend time and writing this long narrative. And thought of online content marketing in that way before I speak this one.
And we talk about the proactive and the reactive. So the proactive is what David's doing. He's laying it all out, you know, because you all have editorial calendars for the most part. You know what's happening in Valentine's Day. You have a certain call to action, or you know whatever it is, Healthy Heart Month. So those are all proactive. And then you've got to be then, and what that enables you to do, if you lay that all out, you're then free to have the reactive engagement. And so a lot of folks, unfortunately, keep their heads down. What am I going to say today? What am I going to say today? And so they're so caught up in that stress and sourcing that they're not able to then be free to let a conversation maybe really take fire. And so it's kind of making yourself available for the viral, for the engagement opportunity. And so the more you can plan, the better. And so I know social media is growing up. And so in that growing up, it means that you need to design campaigns. You need to have the fundamentals down so that you're not worried about that on a daily basis. You're actually able to engage and take advantage of opportunities as they come up. Yeah.
I was wondering if there are suggestions on the sites this week or places to load up your content in advance.
Same.
Well, there's so many. One of our favorites is Sprout Social. It's a great package, especially for teams to task back and forth to one another and have internal communication. And that's a fantastic tool for also posting ahead of time. Buffer is very accessible. They allow you to post ahead on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's API is not as compatible with some other third-party tools, whereas with Buffer it is. So those are a couple ones that we use all the time.
What do you guys use, Brittany?
I use Buffer app.
Okay.
Sherry uses Hootsuite.
And, they go from free to really, really expensive.
Yeah.
I think that KU, we recommended, I'm trying to remember the name of it.
I can add to that, she also has a complete Excel spreadsheet that, I looked at the other day, and I'm like, I don't know how she does all the things that she does. It tracks every comment, every post, once you've responded to somebody, when they followed up. I mean, she's really one of the most organized people I've ever met. So, she was on this week, and just thing that she put together, because the rest never worked for her.
And did you know what competition? Oh, I just get really excited about the future. It's not always anticipated as much, but our first startup, so
Right?
Sorry, can you say the name?
Tweak that.
Tweak that.
Very similar to Hootsuite. Yes.
The other one I had to follow up with Lisa from Fieldworks was talking about her partners and helping them. We have a partner, Terrapin Events, and we've signed into a contract that we're the beneficiary of the runs. But it's just a challenge just to see them because they're just working by day. And if we can help them, and again, with that social media element, if they had that, I mean, they would double the numbers. I mean, that's what they brought us to help them to do. And, we can see that practice. And it's, if you are able to help them, they're going to be able to help you a lot more as well.
Michael brings up a great point. And so building, in order to get donations, your ultimate goal is donations, volunteers, it's the ask, right? But you have to broaden that awareness. If you're only asking 10 people, you're only asking 10 people, so that conversion is very low. So by broadening the awareness, now they are a coveted partner. And so they have the means to promote a partner's event or a partner's promotion. And so they come with real capital. And now, as they said, they can be a little more choosy, or as Lisa said that, now that we've gotten our rhythm, we can be a little bit more selective about who we partner with. So it's not only just how much money did you make and how many donations, but it's what is your reach and what is your ability, the capital, the potential capital when you partner with somebody. And that's a really powerful aspect that I don't think was, aside from the big guys, that brand capital was not really there. And now it can be done on a real grassroots level. I mean, Molly's Fund didn't exist a couple of years ago. They didn't have social media a couple of years ago. Now people are courting them, saying, we'd like you to be the beneficiary of our event if you help us promote it. That's powerful. So now they're able to really parlay it. And as they said, they've gone from local to national pretty quickly because of that awareness. So it's a long game. It's not a short game. So in the short run, you might get some quick donations, but there's a long tail here that's really important to see. Something like that.
Yeah. I have a question, I guess, after you have a really successful campaign, how do you sort of bounce back after that and try to maintain momentum or, I find sometimes if you have a huge success, that everything else sort of feels like you're just choosing that again.
Well, part of that is the fact that we have the calendar so far out. I mean, we know that when we finish a campaign, we have another staff member that sends out personal thank you cards that are all signed. Either I sign them myself or the development director will sign them. And you're already, in that thank you, you're thanking them for participating. And oh, by the way, thanks for doing this. Next month we have this. I mean, we never stopped. So just because the event ended, our post wrap up from memes, posts, photos, anything else that we do with it typically will fall another week or 2 weeks after the event, which then leads right into the next one. And so that goes back to that whole planning schedule. It's, quite honestly, it's never done. It may be done with that day, but you're already still quoting everybody that you just spent time with.
David brought up a great point, and I don't know if everybody got it. They have so many different do to follow up. And in our event methodology, we do that because the before and during is so exhausting that by the time you're done with the event, you don't want to see anything to do with the event, right? You've all been at an event where you've done all the planning and everything, and then they say, okay, we got to clean up, and you're like, no way, why clean up, right? And so you get a whole different crew to come in. But what's important is that you have a checklist, that they're not saying, what do I need to do now? They just have a checklist and they motor through it. They're fresh blood. They, and they can reap the kind of, adulation and kind of fun of the post and really get into it where you're just burnt out. So it's always good to change riders there.
And it goes back, and she's absolutely right, and that goes back to the detailed plan. There's in the hierarchy, Aaron signs a donation from X dollar to X dollar, and then from there it goes to Bob, and then there's another level of myself. But everyone's hand signed with a personal note on the bottom of it. But that just goes to that ball until at the end, and that's why everything can be to build upon itself. It's a hungry machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, for one more question.
Well, I wanted to talk about the Ice Bucket Challenge. There was an SEO group that used to be in my studio, and he came to me and he says, "Oh, you know what? I want to do this, the Ice Bucket Challenge. I've been asking you a couple times." I go, "Dan, it's one thing, but unless you're going to do something really viral, so I go out to the window and I point. You see the bridge across the street right there? I go 2 stories down. You get a group of 20 people. You drop the bucket. That's going to win. But otherwise, it's reaches limit, and you got to look ahead."
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be the next.
Shop line.
Yeah, there's a shop line. Excellent. Well, I'm going to finish it there. Thank you so much to our panel. Please raise your hand again, just so that people can look at you and see if you have any questions around the CEPE DMS certificate. Please let us know. And then Trish Carey back there, she's going to raise her hand. She runs the program at CSU, so if you have any operational questions, she will answer that. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we'll see you next quarter.